I'll just let her roll.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to start over again because I started my sentence with all right, which is one of my little glitches that I do.
You're beautiful, Darren. You got it.
Here we go. Welcome everybody. My name is Darren Hoffman. I'm from the University of Iowa, and I am here to talk about the abstract entitled Outcomes of a Hybrid Multi-Institutional Course Design Workshop Series. With me today is one of my co-authors. There's actually 9 authors on this abstract, and there's just 2 of us here, mercifully. So Katie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Katie Kearns at Indiana University in the graduate school.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's just dig right into this. I think the first important question that people will want to know, what are the big ideas of this project? What's it all about?
What we work together on is a course design series of workshops for graduate students and postdocs to help them turn the thing that they're studying in their research into a syllabus that they could teach at the undergraduate or entry-level graduate position level. And what we know with graduate students and postdocs is many of them are applying for academic jobs, and that as part of that, they might need an example syllabus to talk about and say part of a chalk talk. And so this is a way for them to have those materials ready, and also within the scope of the research that they're actually doing at the university level. Darren, tell us a little bit, since you've been involved for the longest with the design and development of this course, tell us a little bit about how it's developed over time.
The course started as a face-to-face only course at the University of Iowa, and we ran it several different ways with, individual cohorts in single departments, and then we eventually evolved into multidisciplinary cohorts across the whole university. And what we were finding, especially when we were running those multidisciplinary programs, was that the students produced great work in terms of the quality of their syllabi, but they were really frustrated with the inability of their multidisciplinary peers to give them content-specific feedback. And Lord knows I tried as an instructor to fill in the gaps when I could, but I recognize my own inadequacy there too, that sometimes it just really helps to have a colleague who knows your subject. So when we kind of hatched this plan to think about, how could we do something that would bring more of our students in contact with each other, and my student in dance and your student in dance could actually work together. We thought about a multi-institutional program might really help with this, and we thought, well, let's also think about kind of using a flipped approach where we would put a lot of the primary content online as videos, and then use the face-to-face time for application and practice at each local community. So the way this actually worked was that we had 5 institutions, and all 5 of those institutions had a local learning community that met once a week during the program. The rest of the work the students did on their own, in their own time. So they would watch videos about the primary content, and then they would work on their projects and upload their works in progress over the summer. And that also gave them the opportunity to watch each other's projects grow and provide feedback on each other's work. Well, outcomes were that the students did a great job on their projects. The quality of the work was like right on par with what we had seen previously. What was really interesting to learn, though, was that the students didn't necessarily roundly make use of that opportunity to give and get peer feedback from one another. And so we had some suspicions, perhaps, that maybe we didn't do enough to match those students to each other, or maybe we didn't do enough to coach them on how to do that in a way that would feel good for them so that they would keep coming back for more. The students definitely indicated that the course improved their sense of knowledge of course design work. Many of them indicated that they felt like it affected the way they think about their research, because they took this step back and thought about what it all means and what it means to the rest of the world, not just them. What do you think makes this course unique or important or needed?
Dan, I think you hit on a couple items in what you've just mentioned. One of them being that this is a place where graduate students and postdocs are designing course materials based on their active at the forefront of research areas, knowledge production. I don't I know that there are a lot of course design institute um, uh, examples out there. But to me, this is really the one where the participants are working on course materials that are at the forefront of the knowledge that they're researching right now. I think another big component that makes this project unique is about how the graduate students and postdocs are forming communities, both in their local communities and across the nation, really. And I don't really see a lot of examples of that where they are really forming very, in many cases, very strong collaborations and relationships and connections with people across the nation.
Can I ask you a follow-up question about that?
Yeah.
You mentioned this idea of this cutting edge nature of what graduate students do and how that can translate into a really interesting course design. What are some interesting course design topics that you've seen hatched by students in this program?
I was thinking about a student in the 2019 course who was both in ballet and in our kinesiology programs, which are in two separate schools, but she was designing a course that brought together those two research areas of her. So it was really about the physiology of and anatomy and specific kinds of injuries that ballet performers get, and the ways in which there's certain kinds of stretches, certain kinds of movements, certain kinds of warm-ups and cool downs that are really important and good for people who do ballet.
Oh, that's cool.
Very
I love
cool.
how specific it is. That's great.
And it's really specific to the, the interest areas or the expertise areas that we have at our institution too. Darren, for people watching this podcast video of us talking about our course and the research around it, what are you hoping that people might do because they're listening to us?
Well, one thing I think I learned was the limits of my own institution. Because I had run this course several different ways and kept running into the same problem of, how am I going to manage feedback for all of these different people who don't have the expertise to meet one another where they are? And the answer was like, look outside of the institution and think bigger.
We hope that people might consider joining us on this course design workshop series. I know many institutions are doing these already for their graduate students and postdocs, but I'll be honest, it's a lot more fun to do it together and get to meet as collaborators and co-leaders of our local institutions and draw from a common set of materials that you've already produced. And actually some of our colleagues have helped to produce as well. So it's been a lot more fun to do it that way for sure. And then we're also turning that into a research collaboration too, which is a nice outcome of this work. So it's not just teaching or leading not that it's a bad thing, but it's not just leading a local learning community or series of workshops, but it's also engaging in the intellectual effort of producing the materials together and doing research around the project.
That's probably my biggest takeaway from this, aside from the work itself, is just the sense of connection. Getting out of your institution sometimes makes it a little bit less drudgery and more like an adventure together.
I'm really grateful for the course that we've worked on together and the research project that we've done together too. But it's been the friendships that have really been the most powerful outcome for me. I think another takeaway for me too is that probably every one of us is working on a project like this one on our own campuses. And that I hope that this is inspiration for people to say, maybe there's other collaborators out there who want to join with me on that particular thing that I'm doing, and to think about things in more cross-institutional collaborative ways. Thanks, everybody. The awkward ways.
Yeah.